This is the Capital Games Movie Club. I am the Wiz.
And I'm Kim Shactman.
Kimmy, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Kim, it's now become clear how well you know me because last week you decided out of the random ether to watch one of my favorite movies of all time, which is Notting Hill, the 1999 romantic comedy starring Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant, directed by Roger Michel. I have to ask, what brought about you wanting to watch this specifically?
Well, I knew you loved the movie, so you would have no issues with rewatching it again for probably the 100th time. But I haven't seen it since I was probably 16 years old, and I'm 37 now. Yeah. So I just wanted to rewatch because it's been a while.
Yeah, when I was watching this movie, it just dawned on me that this is probably the one movie, maybe with the exception of Wayne's World, that I have seen the most. I've seen Wayne's World a bunch of times, but I think Notting Hill is close to that, which surprised me a bit, because Notting Hill would be the movie I would bust out, like, at a date, when I was on a date, and we wanted to watch it. Let's watch Notting Hill. It's romantic, and da-da-da-da-da, and secretly it's one of my favorite movies. I don't say that until the end, but, you know, I do that, but, yeah.
So basically you turned on the movie so you could try to get laid.
This movie, basically, the genesis of me starting to watch this movie the first time was to get the genesis of getting laid. That's a quick story. I think I mentioned this on the last review. I watched this in the theaters in '99, and the only reason I did that is because I went on a date with a girl. And when I saw the trailer of this, I thought, this looks awful. Like, if you watch the trailer now, the trailer is not good. It has none of the humor, it has none of the heart, it has nothing in the movie that makes you think this is going to be a worthwhile watch. And
I've never watched the trailer.
Oh, God. I mean, it's on YouTube, you can check it out, but I think you'll be surprised with what the choice they made with that trailer. But then, when I went to watch the movie in the theaters with the girl that I was dating at the time, I completely did not pay attention to her at all. I love the movie so much. It's like, oh my God. And yes.
Oh, your poor date.
I know. I mean, I think I had my arm around her, but, you know, I didn't, like, I may get, like, but okay.
Well, was she enjoying the movie too?
Not as much. If I remember correctly, this is like 99. I don't remember exactly, but not as much. She was annoyed at the end of the date. I remember that. Because I guess I gave off the fact of, like, yeah, I kind of want to do the you know, but at the end I was, but like literally at the end I not bawling, but I was tearing up. Oh my God, that's so good. Oh my God. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, she's like, I guess I'm not dating a masculine man. No.
That's not the first time I've been told that, but yes. That's what happened with the first date. And yeah, I can't believe I don't learn my lesson every time with this, because I think
so every time... you went on another date to see Notting Hill in the theater with a girl?
No.
Again?
No. Every time we would go, like, say, to my house to watch a movie and, you know, fool around then, I would instead watch the movie because I love the movie. Because I keep, and I go through this entire cycle every time. It's like, oh wow, well, you know, it's romantic movies. Now let's watch a good movie and maybe I'll get a little and then every time, I end up watching the movie. So
wow,
yes, I love this movie. I will put on my critical hat for this movie, of course, because I do have issues. But I just want to point out, I adore this movie so much. But anyway, yeah, that's my sad dating life. Anyway.
I actually think I owned this movie on VHS. I was thinking back, and I'm like, I think I actually bought this movie on VHS.
I've bought it on VHS, DVD. I owned it on Blu-ray at some point. I lost the Well, that's a story for another day, but I lost the Blu-ray. I don't own it now because it's like $20 to purchase it, and it's like,
and it's on Netflix.
I know. I watched it on Netflix when I realized it was on there. But I've owned it a bunch, and that's kind of the one I usually bust out because it's really one of the only romantic comedies that I actually really like in this. But anyway, let's start talking about the film in general real quick before we get to how we feel about it. Let's talk about the background of the film. It would be, it would be easy to just mention Hugh Grant, Julia Roberts, maybe Rhys Ifans a little bit in this. But I want to talk about Richard Curtis. Richard Curtis is the person who wrote this film. And there is a reason why I'm mentioning him. Is not only that he's now become a valued romantic comedy romance director. He directed Love Actually and About Time.
Yeah. Bridget Jones' Diary.
He did that too. To be candid with everybody, I don't like Love Actually. I've not liked.
You don't?
I do not like Love Actually. I have a lot of problems with that movie, but I do love About Time.
Oh, maybe we should watch that one soon.
Jesus. Okay. You want to get into the arguments already, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I like where this is going. Okay. So, but the thing that made him popular, what made him a writer to get behind and want to make a film with, wasn't those movies. He was a British writer that did a bunch of British TV shows that became big. The first one he did was Blackadder. Are you familiar with British sitcoms and TV shows?
No, I am not versed in them.
Okay.
My husband loves the British version of The Office, but that's about it.
That's the best part of The Office. But yeah, well, he did Blackadder, but there is one that he did do that you might be aware of. Do you know who Mr. Bean is?
Yes.
Okay, he's the one that created the character Mr. Bean.
Hilarious.
Yes.
Absolutely hilarious.
Rowan Atkinson's great as well. I love him. But what led to him writing this, I still don't know the particulars, but he wanted to get into films. He wrote the Mr. Bean movie, I think it's called Bean in the States. I think it's called Mr. Bean's Holiday in Britain. He wanted to stretch his legs a little bit, and he did this movie. And it turned out to go really well for him, because this movie not only made a lot of money, it didn't get a strong critical reception, but people did notice the writing was very good in this.
I thought the writing was excellent.
Yes.
That's the first thing I picked up on watching this film as an adult.
Yeah. I picked up on a bunch of things about this movie that are really interesting watching this now, and probably a 10th time with the sole concentration of just watching this movie. But yeah, I picked up on a bunch of stuff too. So why don't we just get right into the movie, guys? I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a gush fest for me. He warned me. I warned her, and I'm warning you guys. And you probably have already listened to the review of Notting Hill I did with Zero, where he's rolling his eyes going, fuck, man, really? No, that's not Zero at all. But yeah, I adore this movie. So you're going to hear a lot of gushing from me on this one. So let's get into the deeper stuff first here. The thing that I guess I should have realized after seeing it so many times, that dawned on me when I was watching the film, is that the film is a subversion to an extent of what most romantic comedies are. Most romantic comedies are usually about a guy who is trying to get a girl and fucks up along the way to eventually get that girl. This is the exact opposite.
I was just going to say that.
Yes, yeah. Anna Scott is the pursuer in this entire movie. She is after William Thacker, who is played by Hugh Grant, and she is constantly pursuing him. And
she's the man. She's the man in this movie.
Is she? Oh yeah. And
she is.
Yeah. Well, if you want to go that route, sure. She's the one that messes up throughout the entire movie. But what the interesting thing about this movie is that even though she is the aggressor, it's still in the light in the eyes of William Thacker's character. So in most movies, you don't get to see the effects with romantic comedy. You don't see the effects of what the guy does, the pursuer does to mess up. You just see that he messed up and he has to correct it, and then magically the girl forgives him. In this movie, you see William Thacker going through every aspect of what's going on, which is an interesting dynamic in this. But if it was the other way around, let's say it was a male star going after a female commoner, I guess we will call them, the dynamics would be very different in this, because it would almost be like not like a grooming thing, but it would be more about the power dynamic than it really is in this movie. Even though the power dynamic in this movie it is a little obvious in most parts, but they don't dwell on it.
I think that they don't fully dwell on it, but it's crystal clear as you're watching it. Like the minute I was like, wow, like she has so much power over him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I can just see it throughout the whole movie. And I mean, I also don't think the character himself, he was like the typical male, right? No. Like, he wasn't masculine. He wasn't there. It just wasn't typical. So, and honestly, and I know we can kind of get into this after, but I think that's why you love this movie so much, Wiz.
Oh my God! Are you saying because I'm not the typical male? I'm not the masculine machismo.
Yes, I think that you relate to the character.
Okay.
I think you do.
I don't know what to think about this right now.
No, I mean, it's not a negative thing. Yeah, okay. It's just it is, and she was just dominating him, and he was also very vulnerable.
That's the thing that's different, is that the man in this is vulnerable, that he is not only is he in a position of vulnerability, but he himself as a character is a very vulnerable, hurt person, whereas in most other movies, it's really the exact opposite. The female is the one that usually is the one that went through a hard time, had this ex-boyfriend that cheated on her, who was a player, and so on. Like those tropes that they usually do in those movies. It's really the exact opposite in that as well. You might be right. It might be the fact. But I think the other thing that I thought that was interesting is that this is kind of a fantasy with most guys. Really, it's a fantasy realization, because in our society, the guys have to initiate when it comes to dating and trying to initiate a romantic relationship with a woman. This is the exact opposite. It's the woman who is doing that to the guy. And for some guys, I hear some guys say, "Oh, I wish a woman would be like, hey, you want to go on a date so I can?" I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. But in reality, it is kind of a weird thing on both ends, really.
Well, especially in that time period, right? 1999.
Yeah.
Like now, feminism is everywhere now. I mean, at least I think for the most part. But back then, it was kind of uncommon.
Well, it's still uncommon now for the most part. Yeah, feminism is more prevalent nowadays. That is true. But even though it is prevalent, I'm going to eat this. I know after I say this. I still think, to a certain extent, people still rely on gender roles. Even though we claim we're in a more feminist society, we still cling on to those gender roles to a certain extent. I don't have dates or dates with women where they pay the tab on dinner or where they initiate where we're going for a date.
I think we're like halfway there. We're paying half at this point, right? We're paying half for dinner. Not the whole thing, but we're paying half.
Can you introduce me to those women? Because I would like to meet them.
Hey, I'm the breadwinner in my family right now, so there's that.
There you go. All right. Okay, so yeah, there's that dynamic that we've talked about here on this. And I want to point out, I think, that it was really important to have Julia Roberts in this role, especially in that time, and especially now it works. Because if it was something like, I don't know, have you ever watched a movie called Win a Date with Tad Hamilton?
No, it sounds familiar, but I've never seen it.
Okay. The movie is about a guy who falls in a very famous actor who falls in love with a waitress, I think. It's not a good movie. It really isn't. But the famous actor is played by Josh Duhamel. Do you know who Josh Duhamel is?
I do know who Josh Duhamel is. He's a pretty face.
Yes, he is. The issue with Tad Hamilton on that now, if you were to watch it, is that Josh Duhamel is not really that famous. He's not really that well known. If the actress who is playing Anna Scott wasn't Julia Roberts, there would be this weird dynamic of, yeah, is she really that good? I mean, is she really that famous? But with Roberts' credibility as an actress before then and now after, it's a lot more easy to buy that she's a very powerful, world famous.
Well, she can play herself, right? It's like she's playing herself.
Yes, kind of in a way. But and there are these meta sequences in the movie where they talk about the business, what she had to go through to continue being a star, and the eventuality of what will happen to her and what her fears are in the role that she has. So they talk about a little bit about that, which are founded fears that happen to actresses all the time.
Right.
Which is another reason why I think I attached myself so much to this movie, because at the time I was really into the movie industry and I really wanted to know more about it, and this was kind of like an inside thing, sort of. I mean, you can watch it now and you can point out some problems, but there was a little bit of a meta-analysis in this movie as well with fame and everything. What are some things that you caught in the movie that surprised you or that you want to point out?
Well, I can tell you, I did a lot of comparison of when I watched this movie as a teenager to when I watched this movie as an adult.
Oh, those are always interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed that as a teenager, I'm 16 years old, a girl that's falling in and out of love and so forth. And I saw the romantic side of the movie more as a teenager, whereas as an adult, the thing that stuck out to me in this movie was the humor.
Yes.
The humor in this movie was I was literally laughing out loud. And my husband was in the other room and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm watching Notting Hill." He's like, "Wow, I haven't seen that movie in forever." But anyways, I was literally laughing out loud, and I can't remember the last time I did that with a movie.
Especially a movie nowadays. Comedies now,
right.
Romantic comedies now just don't have not just the bite, but they don't have the humor that they had.
The wit and
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the biggest thing that stuck out to me watching this movie as an adult. Right off the bat, it's just humor.
Yeah. I think it's because we live in a more cynical time as well. Because this was before 9/11. And after 9/11, humor became more biting, it became more satirical, and it became a little pseudo-serious. Now I think we're at a point where we have a very negative outlook on things.
Conservative.
So we don't really go for those types of movies anymore. They don't make those types of movies anymore because the art reflects where we're at this point. But in this case, with the humor especially, the humor is very tender. It's a very sweet humor, even though it does poke fun at William throughout the entire movie. Right. Especially I think the one scene that I laughed at the most, and I laugh every time at the scene, is at the end of the dinner, the first dinner with Anna and her sister and his family, where they're all screaming afterwards, and he's like, "Yeah, they do it every time that I leave."
Yes, I was dying. I was like, "Oh my god!" That was perfect.
Yeah,
perfect delivery too. It's just so good.
But Hugh Grant can play that character really well, and I think that's also important too to note. Is that
he was excellent.
Yes.
At the beginning of the film, I was a little bit I don't know how I feel about Julia Roberts. Her acting in this, at the very beginning, and then she almost transforms. I feel like she transforms into something deeper and better. But I guess she would have to kind of withdraw herself at the beginning because that is what they want to show with the character.
Right. You would have to imagine with Notting Hill, the what they had to do was they had to draw into her personal experience. And a little history with Julia Roberts. The only reason why I'm interested in this part is because I love Notting Hill and I want to know more about it. Julia Roberts had a lot of problems with dating, and especially in the 90s, and she was like tabloid fodder back then. I think the one marriage that was like the big thing around the time was her marriage to Lyle Lovett. I don't know if you know who this guy is.
No, I'm about to Google.
He is a country singer, and when you take a look at him, you're gonna go, what? And
Lyle Lovett.
Yeah, that became a lot of tabloid fodder, and a lot of people, if I recall correctly, a lot of people think it was the tabloids that ended up breaking up that marriage to a certain extent. But they were a real odd couple. Like, if you look at her and you look at him, you go,
wow.
Ooh.
I just Googled and I see a photo of them. Interesting.
Yes.
Like, I feel like night and day.
Like, I would imagine she would have to draw from some of that hurt and pain from there, where most actors, when they go through something like that, it's much more palpable to them when they do their performances. And before Notting Hill, I think the last film I saw her in was My Best Friend's Wedding, which...
Oh, I love that movie.
I loved it when I first saw it. I saw it again maybe about 10 years ago, and I feel a lot differently about that. But she was good in that. And that was another thing with Julia Roberts that was a subversion. She was the pursuer. She was the one doing wrong.
Yeah.
So a little more well-worn territory, but I would say My Best Friend's Wedding is much more comedic than this movie is. Okay, this might not be a fair criticism to most people, but I genuinely feel if Julia Roberts isn't smiling in the role at some point, it's usually not a good performance. Look at movies like Sleeping with the Enemy, Mary Riley, Secret. Oh my God, The Secret in Their Eyes was terrible. I
haven't seen that. I saw Sleeping with the Enemy, though. I actually watched that a bunch of times.
Oh, yeah?
It was like, my mother loved that movie. I don't know why. She just really liked it.
A lot of people seem to like that movie. I think I might have to rewatch it, but I was not particularly impressed by it. But this was a long time ago. But she's one of these actresses, and some actors have these things where if they don't show a physical attribute of some point that they are famous for, it kind of hurts the performance. And I think with Julia Roberts' smile, which is a beautiful smile, like I can't...
It lights up her whole face.
Oh my
I
God.
feel like she looks... When she doesn't smile, she just looks... The word that comes to mind is flat. She just looks flat to me.
Yes. Yeah, I would say so. When she tries to do serious roles, even Erin Brockovich, the one that got her the Oscar, even Erin Brockovich, I was like, it's like, I don't know about that. Like, But anyway.
The reason she got that is because the storyline was so well written. You know, I mean, it's a true story, too. So you can't really go wrong there. And
the director of the film, Steven Soderbergh, just had a monster year that year. He got nominated for Best Director twice that year.
Wow.
It was for Erin Brockovich and for Traffic. And I think he won for Traffic that year. If I recall correctly, I think that's what happened. I'll look it up. Whatever. Her performance is very good in this. Hugh Grant, I think, is very good as well in this. But this, I debate whether I think this is Hugh Grant's best performance here or if it's For Weddings and a Funeral. But he does...
I still haven't seen that whole movie.
For Weddings and a Funeral?
Yeah, I've seen like bits and pieces of it, but I've never seen the whole movie.
It's a very good movie, but he's actually a lot more charming in that movie because he has to be. That's just his character. Whereas William in this movie isn't really supposed to be charming. He's just kind of oafish and... He's
timid. He's sensitive.
But in that sensitive timidness is some charisma there that works. And it works because Hugh Grant can play that character really well.
Yes.
He does play losers pretty well. It's kind of harsh to call William Thacker a loser, but he's kind of portrayed as one in this.
It came to mind as I was watching the film.
Yeah.
It makes me sad to say that too. Like now that I say it out loud, I'm like, aw. You kind of feel bad for his character.
Me too, because I like him, and
I do too. I want him to win. I want him to win the girl. You know.
But that's it. Okay. You just said something. You just said something interesting here, because you want him to win the girl, but he doesn't have to do any struggling in this. He's not the one that has to, quote unquote, win. All he has to do is let it happen, and and throughout the film, he doesn't do that. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, at the same time, I like at one point I was like, oh, I really want to, I want them to be together. And then at another point, I was like, you need to stick up for yourself, like she's walking all over you.
Yes, but I think that's kind of the interesting power dynamic, and I think the fantasy that some guys have with women, where the woman is the aggressor, and she is starting up everything involved in the relationship, where that is kind of a male fantasy. Well, most guys do say it's a fantasy of theirs, but in reality, I've been in that situation. It's kind of weird. It's a little weird, but okay. Before we get into my sexual history, let's move on. Performances. Okay, I'm gonna really be a critic here, and I've always fancied myself a film critic.
Okay, go for it.
I have to mention some issues that I have with the movie. Even though I adore this movie, it is not a perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect movie, but it's not a perfect movie, and the direction is very pedestrian in this movie. It really is. Like, if you want a visual, if I were to explain the visual style of this, it would be standard 90s romantic comedy. It's nice looking, but it's very standard and very safe. There is the one scene in the middle of the film where they do the seasons change in like a minute and a half, which is a very well shot scene.
When he's walking through the market, the outdoor market.
But other than that, like, there's really nothing special about the movie when it comes to the way it's shot. So that may not be much of a criticism for most people. They'd be like, oh, that's fine, whatever. But I did notice that even though, because I usually like visually distinctive movies or good writing, and the visuals of this movie are just not that appealing at all in this. And I think that's due to Roger Michel, the director, who after this movie really didn't do much else. Else to know.
I was looking him up. I'm like, who is this person? And I was like, he doesn't really have much under his belt.
No, I mean he's still directing to this day. It's just that the other movies that he's had are not. They're really not much to write home about, essentially. Right. What else can I say about this? I mean, I liked Rhys Ifans. I used to think Rhys Ifans' performance as Spike was pretty funny and actually very good.
Oh my god, I was going to mention him actually. He was just, again, laugh out loud funny.
Yes.
He's like the typical bachelor.
Yes.
Typical bachelor living with another guy in a bachelor pad, and they just complement each other so well.
Yeah, and the funny thing too is, especially in nowadays' eyes, where they want to criticize every little thing that happened in the past and say how wrong it is, you can look at him and be like, you're kind of a fucking degenerate. but the way that they still portray him is still kind of charming and kind of lovable. Like, you can understand why, even though he's kind of a pig, why William is like, it's Spike. It's like, what are you gonna do?
Who he is.
Yeah. But he's still like a good guy, and then
right. He still cares about his roommate.
Right.
Just has a weird way of showing it.
Yes. Yes. What else can I criticize about this movie?
Well, see, that goes right to the criticism.
But that's what I gotta do it because I can't just say, "Oh, it's so perfect." No, it's not.
I love it. I cry all the time.
Oh God, shut up. Just shut up, okay? God, okay. On spoilers, I'll get to the scene that makes me cry. I'll do it. Anyway.
I can't wait for that part.
I bet you can't. Oh, God. Anyway. Is it my most favorite romantic movie? No. But it's
not?
It is not. It is not. I have one other movie that I think tops it.
What is it?
It's called Before Sunset. There's
you told me about that, and I think I've seen it, but I'll have to rewatch
Well,
that.
it's a trilogy of movies called the Before Trilogy. It's with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy.
Yes.
Yeah,
I did see that.
It is. Oh my god! And if you've seen Before Sunrise, and then you watch Before, I think that's the distinction I have to point out. If you've seen all three movies, if you see Before Sunset, and you see if you see Before Sunrise, and you see Before Sunset, oh my god, that movie hits in a different way. Oh my god!
I'm gonna have to watch those again. I saw them a long time ago.
Yeah. I guess the one criticism I have to point out with is this: if you're not a fan of Hugh Grant or Julia Roberts, I could see someone liking this movie and saying, "Oh yeah, it's good," but not loving it.
See, I love Hugh Grant.
I do too.
Roberts, I could take or leave her. Like, I'm not.
Same.
It's okay, but I love Hugh Grant. I just think he is such a great actor, and he plays his character so well. But again, like you said, he's usually playing the loser, which is kind of sad, but...
That's not entirely true. He just plays a very charming person who is kind of aloof.
Yes.
That's because that's how he was in Four Weddings and a Funeral. Even, like, movies like 9 Months, where...
Oh, I forgot about that movie.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
With a future Academy Award winner in that movie.
Love that movie.
Yeah. But I guess the only other criticism I can give is if you don't find these actors charming or anything, you might like the movie, but you might hear us gush about this and going, what are you guys talking about?
Like, this is overrated. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But I will say this, though. When you knew a friend that I used to have who was big into films like I was, for years I would tell him, you have to watch Notting Hill. It's such a good movie. And he would look at me like I have three heads, because this is the same kind of guy who we'll think like Tarantino, we'll watch Tarantino, Scorsese, and those are great movies. How could Notting Hill be a good movie? And finally, I think when he met his future wife, he finally watched it. Like, you know what's a good movie? He's like, what? Notting Hill. No shit!
Like, I told you.
Yeah. I'd say if you haven't seen this movie, and even if you're casually interested in either of these actors, give it a shot. I think it is one of my favorite romantic comedies. It probably is my most favorite romantic comedy, but it's just a fantastic movie, I think.
And even if you like humor, I would watch it for that alone. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, there are some really funny scenes in this movie that even when I know when they're coming, they're still absolutely
It's the
hilarious.
writing.
Yes.
The writing makes it humorous. It's so funny. Like I said, I feel like you mentioned already, like Julia Roberts she just falls flat when she's not showing that much emotion on her face, right?
Not in this movie though. I'm talking about in general with other movies.
I think in the beginning she did, though, in the very beginning of the movie. Like, I just felt kind of like, eh. And then as it progressed, I was like, okay, I can see how she fits this character in this role well. So it took me a little bit to warm up to her, I guess is what I'm trying to say in this film. Right,
okay. That's understandable. You want to get into spoilers?
Let's do it.
All right, we'll get into spoilers for Notting Hill. If you haven't watched it and you are interested, you can stop this, come back, and listen. We'll get into spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, since I'm the one that is the host and I dictate what the things that we talk about, I'm going to start with you. Favorite scene in the movie, go.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when they are all sitting at the table, the birthday scene, and they're passing around the brownies.
Yes.
That is one of my favorite scenes because I think for me that was the turning point of where I started to like Julia Roberts as the character more, because she was showing her vulnerable side and her more feminine side of voicing she's been through, right?
Yeah.
And like being more emotional, whereas at the beginning of the movie she really does play the masculine side, and she's not showing or letting her guard down at all. But that's the turning point for me, and I just love that part of the movie.
It is a very sweet part of the movie as well, because you also see the reactions of the family members when they realize who that is in the movie. And it still feels genuine, because I think most movies that aren't written well that would have this type of scene, everyone would just freak out. Oh my God, Sarah Scott! Like they would do that, but they were much more reserved and be like, oh, it's like, wait a minute.
And that's like more realistic, right? Like, yeah,
right.
I thought it was excellent. I just love that whole scene, but especially when they're passing around the brownies, and she's like, "Hey, why don't I get the brownie?" You know, and it's just. There's so much humor in that scene too. Is another reason why I love it.
Right, and I like the ending because, again, in a more poorly written movie, they would say like, "Oh wow, you really go through a lot. Here is the brownie. I feel so sorry for you."
And they're like, "No."
Yeah, I know. I love the thing. Nah, nice try.
Yeah. And I love the part in the movie where she first comes in and what's his name? The guy that plays, I think it's Bernie or Bert. Is that his name?
Oh God, I think so.
He's talking to her, and he's like, "Oh, so what do you do for work?" And she's like, "I'm an actress." And he's like, "Oh, I've done some acting myself." And he's like, talking about finances and so forth. And he's like, "Oh, acting, it doesn't really bring in that much these days. Like, how much was your first film?" And she's like, $50 million. He's like, "Oh," he's like, "That's pretty good." Like, it's so funny.
And how he still didn't realize who it was.
Still didn't know who it was. I was like, "Oh my God, so funny." And then the sister following her into the bathroom and stuff. It's just great.
And then the way that we already talked about, the way that scene ends is where they leave and all of a sudden like, ah!
They're like freaking out, and he's like, they get like that every time I leave.
I know. I love that line.
I know.
A great. Oh God. Yeah, I think that's the line I think that's the best line of the movie. The one line that always gets passed around with this movie that I think has stood the test of time, that a lot of people seem to identify with, is the one where Anna Scott says, "I'm just a girl asking a boy for her to love me." That's the line.
In front of a boy asking him to love me.
Thank you. Okay. Good Lord. All right. You're turning into me now all of a sudden. What?
Well, it's also just when she delivers it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
In the bookstore. And they've already gone through so much, even though they were never really in like a committed relationship.
Yes.
And so to deliver it at that time is like, wow, she loves him. She loves him. And then I love the scene right after when they're all sitting in the restaurant. And he's like, "Did I make the right decision?" And they're like, "Yeah, actresses are, overrated or whatever." And then Spike comes walking in and he's like, "You daft prick."
I know.
They're just like, oh my God, this is so funny.
And then, another way that scene is written so well is that, again, in a lesser movie, they would be like, it would instantly like, "Oh, how could you? Oh, she did this and that, and blah blah blah, and she does this." But in this movie, they're like, yeah, like I think it's a little more realistic to a certain extent because they want to support him and they don't want him to go through what he went through, until they all realize the last thing she said, and then he realizes what happened. Like,
like she used the word love, that just doesn't. People don't say that.
I don't think that was the thing that got the group to turn around. I think it was the fact that she made herself so vulnerable to him. I think this is the interesting thing that I just figured out on this one. This is the
hold on, time out. When you say vulnerable, telling somebody that basically she told him that she loves him without telling him that she loves him.
Exactly.
So, to tell somebody that you love them, that is being vulnerable, right? So
that's what I'm saying. This is the only time in the movie where she is vulnerable to him. It's a key scene in this. Because throughout the entire time in the film, she's in power. She initiates everything.
She's honestly kind of mean. She's kind of mean throughout most of the film, if you really think about it. So think about it, right? She had a boyfriend.
Yes.
When she started first kind of like hanging out with him, right?
Right.
That's kind of like, really, like, I really don't give a shit if you're a $50 million movie star or actress. Like, you should still have some kind of morals, right?
Sure.
That bothered me. And then, the scene where, gets discovered at his house with all the cameras and everything, she just automatically takes it out on him. And it's like, I guess I could understand that
Right.
scene and why it needed to be there, but she's really nasty to him. And I'm just like, but at the same time, I think that's all she knows.
Not only that, I think she's also under the pretense that, of course, he knows what I'm going through. Of course, he knows that I have a boyfriend. Everybody knows.
Right.
I think there's that as well, because if you remember the scene where after he takes out the trash with her boyfriend and her from that hotel room and sees his friend, they all are like, "How did you not know she had a boyfriend?" Like, I didn't know.
It's all over the front, the paper and so forth. Yeah.
So there could be that part where she just assumed he knew. In that
but
part.
I just feel like for somebody that's so, like, he's so kind and timid and sweet, like, you would think she'd be a little bit more nicer.
But that's, yeah, of course. But she also goes through the stuff that she goes through with the press and everything. Right. So, yeah, there's that part too.
Well, right at the beginning of the movie, when Spike comes downstairs and he's trying on all the T-shirts, I was dying.
Oh, yeah, those were funny.
That's dying. I was like, that's so cute. I was like, oh my God.
The character of Spike is just great to pull away from the main romance when it's going back and forth. He's funny in this movie. Another funny scene, I think it's the press junket scene.
Yes, I was just going to bring that. Horse and hound.
Do you have any horses in this movie? Yeah. Well, it is set in space.
He's like, is your next movie gonna have any horses or hounds? And then the woman that was taking him out of the room makes him interview all the other people.
I know. She took your flowers, man. Yeah. Bitch.
Oh my God, I was dying. He's like, yeah, those are for my grandmother in the hospital. Like, oh my God, it's so funny.
Oh God, there's
so many. Thought you were gonna be gushing and crying, but I'm just having you laughing.
Oh, I haven't gotten to the one that gets me every time. I haven't gotten to that point. Oh, let's get through it. Okay.
All right, let's go there. What's your favorite scene in the movie? Here we go.
Fuck. It's the park scene.
So explain to me the park scene. Which one? Because they're in gardens, they're in parks.
After the dinner with her family and for her sister's birthday, they're walking in Notting Hill.
Yeah.
And they're at this gate where where she has to climb over they have to climb on the fence, and he does the whoopsie daisies thing. Which
sorry to interrupt, but that's the first time I was like, wow, she's really the man in this movie.
Yes. Yes.
She climbs right over it, and he's just like, whoopsie daisy.
I know, it's funny.
So funny.
But yeah, that scene's kind of sweet. But when they get over the fence, and then she kisses him for it's not the first time, but that really passionate kiss, that song that comes up is just like, oh my God, that's a good song.
The music was excellent in this movie, by the way.
Yes, it is. And then they get to the park bench. Where it is talking about the guy that will always, oh my God, fuck.
And she's sitting there, and you see, and the camera pans out, and he's walking away, and it's almost like he's like, I don't think she wants me to sit next to her.
Yes.
But then she's like, come sit with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like,
oh my God.
Oh my God. You seriously fucking crying right now?
Fuck you. Fuck you. That's not the thing that gets me. It's when they talk about the inscription on the actual bench. About her husband.
Because and again, that's when you can see a tiny bit of sadness in her character and vulnerability, and the masculinity kind of fades away, where she's lonely.
Mm-hmm.
She's lonely.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. And yeah. And he's just like, well, this is pretty much my whole life is like this.
Yeah, pretty much.
He got divorced. Like, his wife left him. Like, it's just like, yeah, welcome to the club.
Yeah. But it is such a sweet scene. It's a scene that, God, man, again, every time, like, I even know what's gonna happen, and I'm like, oh my god, why can't I have
surprised.
this?
Like, I don't know. Like, I truly think. See, you want to be the character. You want to be Hugh Grant.
I don't want to be Hugh. No. Yeah, hold up. Okay, first off, I'm not that handsome. Secondly, I do have long hair. But third, not the power dynamic of it. I want what these characters are bound, because you know at the end of the film they're going to get together. You know it. But even when you know it, you want that special, tender scene that they're having where they're in this part, and they show at the end of the movie too.
Yes,
where they're in
it is
the
a
park.
moment.
It is a
and she's so that's the scene I thought you were like cried at was the end.
Not the end.
You're
No,
like, oh, they're in the park, but no, now this makes sense. But
oh
yes,
my god.
They go back to the bench at the end of the movie, and she's laying there. And one thing I didn't realize when I watched this movie as a 16-year-old was at the end, she's pregnant.
Yep.
I didn't realize that. I was like, oh, that makes it that much sweeter.
I know. Oh, God. And that's actually the testament of a really good writing, because sometimes with movies, you can watch the first time and get that effect, be good. But then if you rewatch it and you know what happens, the effect dims a bit.
Right.
But now that I know what happens at the end of the film, it's actually it hits that much harder. I'm like, oh my God. Like, yeah, I'm a woman. What do you want? Okay? Like,
yeah, you kind of are.
God. Gee whiz, I wonder why you're single. Huh.
Let me think about that one.
Yeah, great.
No, it is such a good movie.
Oh,
but
it's so good.
But I will be honest with you, for me, like, so I can understand why you love that scene so much and why it gets to you.
Because I'm a bitch?
Yeah, basically.
Oh my God!
I'm just kidding. No.
End of podcast.
Yeah. You're like, and delete. No. I think for me, I liked that scene, but I have to join the bandwagon. I really love the scene with the classic line in the bookstore. It got to me more. I don't know why. I think because I was like, even though I've seen this movie, I still wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, it's a very good line. It's very well executed. And it's just a tender scene. And again, like we discussed, it really is the only time where she gets vulnerable, where she makes that leap, where it really is William throughout the entire time. Even though he has no power in this relationship, he's putting putting in a lot of effort. He's faking his identity.
Well, also when he stands up to the gentleman at the table when they're out to dinner and they're making fun of her and basically calling her a whore, and he walks up to them and stops them, and like that's, and you can tell that's not who he is.
Yes.
But he wants to protect her.
God. Oh, man. Oh, there's so much.
I think it's funny, too, that he owns, like, a travel bookstore. I was like, what? What is a travel bookstore?
I mean, but it kind of adds to, like, is a person that... Loser is such a harsh
He's a dork. He's like a dork.
Yes, yeah. But he's made not great decisions. And usually when that happens, unfortunately in our society, if you make one bad decision, it colors you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of what they're going through here. But then that belays in the fantasy where I think most people get behind is that even though you may make a mistake, you might find the love of your life, and it might be this amazing person who will see you for who you are, than just what you are in this. So there's that kind of fantasy aspect as well in this movie.
I also saw like a bit of love at first sight in this movie.
With Julia Roberts.
Mm-hmm. But also, like, they kind of trick you because you don't know if they're heading into the friend zone at one point. Like when she comes to hide out at his house. Yeah. They kind of trick you because they don't, like, she goes to bed and then he sleeps on the couch. And then Spike comes down and he's just like...
I don't think that's a friend zone thing. I think that's more along the lines of... Because at no point did I think that William thought they were just going to be friends, or that he had just
No,
friends
I
feeling?
didn't think his character did either, but I think like they were trying to make it seem that way at one point, and then it like quickly shifted again.
I'm gonna push back a little on that. I think it just plays more on the power dynamic of Anna and William, where Anna was in control the entire time, and call me crazy, maybe I'm wrong, but I think in this circumstance, Anna just realized that she had an out somewhere and decided to go to the one place where she thought she was safe, but also, to be with somebody who will want to be with him or with her at the time.
But that's also like a friend zone thing, if you really think about it, right?
Okay.
Because she could go anywhere. She has $1 bazillion. She can go anywhere she wants to go. And she goes to see him, and I know she trusts him and so forth, but like, she's going to be with somebody that makes her feel safe, and like, my friends make me feel safe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just feel like, because she wasn't like, if she was going to sleep with him, she would have done it already, if you really think about it.
Possibly, yeah. I guess I see what you're saying. I don't agree, but I guess I see what you're saying, though. But yeah, I mean, again.
But can you see how the audience would think that?
Sure, I can see that. I don't agree, but I can see where someone could think that. Sure, I can.
Like if they were watching the movie for the first time, obviously.
Yeah, I guess I can see that. Okay.
I kind of felt like at that point she was like using him.
Definitely, no, definitely.
Like,
I would agree with that.
Totally using this guy, like, and I don't even think she really wants to like have sex with him, and he clearly wants to be with her.
Yeah,
and it's just kind of like, all right, well, maybe they're just gonna end up friends. I don't know.
But it was never like a sexual thing with William. It was more like a, oh my god, I found this amazing person kind of thing. Again, another.
Yeah, but he's also a guy.
But they don't portray him like that in this, because that's also a subversion of the romantic comedy trope, where if it was the guy, the first thing he'd want to do is sleep with her, like at a moment's notice, sure, but that's not William. William doesn't do that. He doesn't attempt that. He doesn't try it.
No, but he does ask her that night when they're walking. He says, "Oh, do you want to come back to my place?" And she goes, "That's not a good idea."
It's complicated. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that wasn't really a no. It was more like, that's a little, yeah. But anyway, yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Ha.
I'm not saying you're right.
I'm like, am I ever going to get him to agree with me? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. I guess something that you should know, I don't think I should have to tell you this. Something you should know about me, basically, it is really hard for me to change my mind. I will admit...
No.
Shut up. I will admit... You bitch. But if you change my mind, I will admit it. I will say it. But what I often do is I can definitely see people's perspectives on things as to why they think that way.
Yeah, that was definitely like my perspective of it.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. You're wrong, but that's fine.
Screw you.
Yeah, well, anyway. Okay, anything more you want to talk about with spoil? I think we just spoiled the entire movie.
I know, like, sorry guys.
Let's get into final thoughts. You go ahead. What are your final thoughts of the movie? What's the rating you give it?
I give the rating a 4, a solid 4.
Okay.
4 stars. And the reason why is because I think, like you said, it's not like I guess it's your typical 90s romantic comedy, but nowadays it's not, they're not as good, they're not as well written as they were in the 90s, especially for this film. What puts it over the edge for me is Hugh Grant, his character, the way he plays this character, and the humor in the movie, as well as those deep romantic scenes that just kind of get to the middle of your heart, right? And I just think overall, the movie was just, I don't know, it is that dynamic of, like you said, the woman, constantly chasing the man, and it's just different. It's just different. Yeah. So overall, I really did enjoy the movie, and I enjoyed it the second time around too. And I would highly recommend it. Like you said, especially if you are a fan of Hugh Grant or Julia Roberts, but other than those two characters and those two actors and actresses, I don't know if somebody else would enjoy the movie as much if they don't adore or even kind of like Hugh Grant or Julia Roberts.
Yeah. I do agree with you on that point, that if you don't like the principal actors, you may enjoy it, but you won't love it as much as I think I do, and maybe that you enjoy it as much.
Yes, correct.
I'd give it 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Oh, wow. 4.5?
Yes. I mean, this was for a long time, it was a 5-star film for me. I adored this film. So, God, you were there, you know. But
I do.
Yes. But again, I agree that if you don't like the principal actors, this might not be a movie I would say watch right away. But even if you passively enjoy them, or you say, oh, they're good in this, I would say give it a shot. It's really good, very charming. The writing is very well done. Some good humor in it as well. It's got some great scenes in this, and then the dynamic between the principal actor and the characters are actually very interesting. Even after a first watch at this, since I watched this when I was like 17 and adored it, I didn't really think about that deeply. If I'm criticizing one thing in this movie, it's the direction, and it's not that the direction's bad, it's just pedestrian. Yeah, that's really it. I mean, but that's really enough for me to knock it a 0.5 star, because I know of some romantic movies that do some interesting things with shooting and everything, and the way that the film is dynamically done, that Notting Hill doesn't do. It is, in all intents and purposes, a standard romantic comedy, but with some subversion to it. But even though that is the case, it is something that I deeply enjoy, and I can't get enough of. I think when you become a curmudgeonly film critic like me, and you, from what I've told, I hate everything. When you get that way, there's going to be a couple of movies that even if someone were to point out, well, what about this part? What about? Yeah, that's true. I'm still going to love it anyway because I have this deep attachment to it. I think Notting Hill is just that to me, to a certain extent. So I will always love this movie. Even I will probably be 80 years old talking to you and like, oh, I saw Notting Hill last night. Like, oh, I can't hear you.
I still do think it's pretty funny that this is one of your favorites.
Oh, God, I adore this movie so much. But yeah, 4.5 out of 5. Yeah, if you really like romantic comedies, and I guess if you want to get laid, don't watch it, because you'll probably watch it more than you'll try to attempt to get laid, if you're like me.
Unless you're not a William Thatcher.
Wait, what?
Unless you're not a William Thatcher.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. God damn it, I'm starting to regret this. Oh. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Thankfully, we'll watch something else that you won't have me be called a bitch at some point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, 4.5 out of 5 stars for Notting Hill. I adore this movie, but anyway, I digress. Let's get into the movie we're going to be watching next week. I asked you if there was a certain type of film that you wanted to watch that you were interested in, and you were like, nah, bitch, we're going to watch this. I'm like, oh, okay. And we're gonna.
Is so kind. He lets me pick most of the movies, so yeah.
Oh, there's gonna be a point where we're gonna watch something of mine. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. It's gonna happen.
Damn it.
It's gonna happen. But we're gonna watch the 1996 musical comedy That Thing You Do, starring Tom Everett Scott, Steve Zahn, Jonathan Scheich, Ethan Embry, Liv Tyler, and Tom Hanks. Directed by Tom Hanks. I haven't seen this movie since 90. You know, I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Have you seen this movie?
I have seen this movie.
I love it.
Okay. I mean,
I know that sounded kind of creepy, but I really do.
No.
I'm also like, I really love like music. Like, it's not a musical, but I love like the musical scenes in it too. So we'll get into that next week.
Right. Yeah. So we'll get into That Thing You Do for next time. So. That's it. Of course, if you have movies that you want to suggest us watch, please nothing disgusting. Like, do not say a Serbian film or Salo, please. We're not watching that shit. But if you have a suggestion of what you think we should watch,
Drop us a comment. Drop us a line.
Drop us a comment. You can go on to Twitter and comment on one of the posts on Capital Games. And you can do it on the YouTube channel as well. And that's it. For the Capital Games Movie Club, I am The Wiz.
And I'm Kim Shactman.
We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.